Ray Dalio couldn't tell anyone what he saw in that document, not his team at Bridgewater, not his closest advisors, not even his wife. The classified intelligence report sat on his mahogany desk at 2:47 a.m., its red confidential stamp glowing under the desk lamp like a warning beacon. What started as a routine economic briefing had just revealed the most dangerous financial conspiracy of the 21st century. 3 hours earlier, Ray had been sound asleep when his secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Janet Yellen's office. Emergency, eyes only, come alone. No billionaire hedge fund manager gets calls like that unless something catastrophic is unfolding behind closed doors. The drive through empty Washington, D.C. streets felt surreal. Ray's mind raced through possibilities. Market crash, banking crisis, currency collapse. He'd weathered them all before, but this felt different. The urgency in Yellen's voice, the cloak and dagger secrecy, the late night summons, all pointed to something that could shake the global financial system to its core. But nothing prepared him for what he discovered in that sterile conference room beneath the Treasury building. Nothing prepared him for the silver files. Ray, what I'm about to show you. Cannot leave this room, Janet Yellen had said, her usually composed demeanor cracked with visible stress. We have a situation that threatens the entire monetary framework of the Western world. She slid a thick folder across the polished table. The cover bore Chinese characters, alongside English text. Operation Silver Dragon, Phase 3 implementation. Ray's hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Inside were shipping manifests, mining data, central bank communications, and satellite imagery that painted a terrifying picture. China hadn't just restricted silver exports. As the media reported, they had orchestrated the most sophisticated commodity manipulation in human history. For 18 months, while the world focused on trade wars and COVID recovery, Beijing had been quietly implementing a three-phase plan to weaponize silver against the US dollar system. Phase 1 had been subtle stockpiling, using shell companies and proxy buyers. China had accumulated nearly 40% of the world's silver reserves without triggering international alarms. Ray traced his finger down a list of transactions that read like a financial thriller. Fake mining operations in South America, ghost companies in the Caribbean, mysterious bulk purchases through London dealers. But Phase 2 was where the genius became apparent. China had simultaneously restricted their own silver production, while flooding international markets with paper silver contracts, digital promises of metal that didn't actually exist. This artificial suppression had kept prices low while they accumulated physical silver at bargain prices. Ray looked up from the documents, his decades of market experience helping him connect the dots. They've been playing both sides, he whispered, buying physical while selling paper. Classic manipulation, but on a scale I've never seen. Yellen nodded grimly. It gets worse. Phase 3 is already underway. The next set of documents revealed the masterstroke. China had begun calling in their paper contracts while simultaneously cutting off physical silver supplies to the West. Industrial companies dependent on silver for solar panels, electronics, and medical equipment were facing unprecedented shortages. Meanwhile, the price was exploding upward as markets realized the physical metal simply didn't exist to cover the outstanding contracts. But the real shock came on page 47 of the intelligence report. I intercepted communication between China's central bank and Russia's central bank, dated just 2 weeks ago. The translation chilled Ray to the bone. Silver protocol. Achieving desired results. Dollar confidence declining faster than projected. Recommend acceleration of Phase 4 timeline. American middle-class savings vulnerability window optimal. Proceed with monetary disruption sequence. Phase 4. Ray flipped frantically through the remaining pages, but they were redacted with thick black ink. Whatever Phase 4 involved, it was classified beyond even his security clearance. But he could guess. If China controlled global silver supplies and had weaponized the metal against dollar-based financial systems, Phase 4 would be the killing blow. The implications hit him like a sledgehammer. Silver wasn't just rising because of industrial demand or investment speculation. It was rising because America's greatest economic rival had turned it into a financial weapon. Every ounce of silver that Americans bought thinking they were protecting their wealth was actually funding the dismantling of their own monetary system. Ray's phone buzzed with an urgent message from his chief analyst at Bridgewater. Ray, you need to see the overnight silver action. Something unprecedented is happening. The text included a chart showing silver futures spiking 23% in Asian trading alone. What his analyst didn't know, what nobody knew, was that this wasn't market volatility. It was economic warfare. Yellen reached across the table and placed her hand on the documents. Ray, we need your help. Your firm's algorithms, your market connections, your credibility with international investors. We need to find a way to counter this without triggering panic. But Ray was already thinking 3 steps ahead, his mind processing the geopolitical chess game unfolding around silver. How long do we have? Based on current accumulation rates and market dynamics, our economists estimate China could trigger a full silver shortage crisis within 6 months. When that happens, industrial production stops, solar panel manufacturing halts, electronic device assembly lines shut down. The green energy transition becomes impossible without Chinese cooperation. Ray stared at the documents spread before him, decades of economic experience crystallizing into a terrifying realization. China had identified the one commodity that modern America couldn't survive without, but had foolishly allowed others to control. Silver wasn't just a precious metal anymore. It was the linchpin of technological civilization, and America had sleepwalked into complete dependence on their greatest rival. The drive back to Connecticut felt like a blur. Ray's mind churned through scenarios, each more dire than the last. Should he warn his investors, adjust Bridgewater's positions, alert the financial media? But every option carried devastating risks. Move too fast, and he'd trigger the very panic they were trying to avoid. Move too slow, and his clients would be caught in the crossfire of an economic war they didn't even know was happening. By dawn, Ray sat in his home office, surrounded by screens displaying global market data. Silver was now up 31% in 24 hours, with no signs of slowing. His secure phone showed 17 missed calls from major financial institutions, all demanding explanations for the unprecedented precious metals volatility. But Ray couldn't answer their questions without revealing classified intelligence. He couldn't protect his investors without exposing national security secrets. He couldn't sound the alarm without potentially triggering the very financial collapse that China was orchestrating. For the first time in his legendary career, Ray Dalio felt completely trapped. The morning news was already spinning the silver surge as a flight to safety amid global economic uncertainty. CNBC brought on experts who blamed everything from inflation fears to industrial demand to cryptocurrency correlation. None of them had any idea they were watching the opening moves of the most sophisticated economic warfare campaign in modern history. Ray's assistant knocked on his office door. Mr. Dalio, Beijing is calling. They want to discuss Bridgewater's China partnerships. The timing was too perfect to be coincidental. China was probing, testing to see if Ray knew about their silver operation. He picked up the phone with steady hands, knowing that this conversation could determine not just his firm's future, but potentially the financial fate of millions of Americans. This is Ray Dalio. Ray's blood ran cold. They knew about the Treasury meeting. They knew he had seen the silver files, and now they were making it clear that his silence wasn't just requested, it was demanded. The voice on the other end was politely menacing. Mr. Dalio, we understand you've been having interesting meetings in Washington. Perhaps it's time we discuss the future of precious metals markets. Face to face. I'm listening, Ray replied, his voice betraying none of the fear coursing through his veins. Excellent. We have a private jet waiting at Westchester Airport. We'll discuss silver trading strategies during the flight to Shanghai. I think you'll find our proposal most educational. The line went dead. But as he looked at the silver charts continuing their relentless climb, Ray realized that the traditional rules of finance no longer applied. This wasn't about markets anymore. It was about survival, economic, political, and potentially personal. His hands shaking slightly. Ray reached for his encrypted phone and began typing a message to the Treasury Department. But before he could send it, his computer screens flickered and went black. Then slowly, Chinese characters appeared across every monitor in his office. Ray stared at the phone, understanding that he had just been given an ultimatum disguised as an invitation: cooperate with China's silver manipulation, or face the consequences of trying to expose it. Either choice would betray everything he had built his career on: radical transparency, principled decision-making, and protecting his investors from financial predators. The silver dragon is awake, Mr. Dalio. Choose wisely. The war for the future of money had begun, and Ray Dalio found himself standing at the epicenter of a financial battlefield where the stakes weren't just profit and loss. They were the economic independence of the United States itself. Ray's office door burst open as his security team rushed in, alerted by the breach of his computer systems. But Ray barely noticed them. His eyes were fixed on the silver price, which had just crossed $80 per ounce for the first time in history. The voice on the other end paused for just a moment. Sir, code silver protocols haven't been activated since 1970. This is Ray Dalio, he said when the line connected. I need to speak with the president. We have a code silver situation. As sirens wailed in the distance and silver prices continued their meteoric rise, Ray made the decision that would define not just his legacy, but potentially the fate of the global financial system. He picked up his secure phone and dialed a number that only 5 people in America were authorized to call. They are now, Ray replied, watching silver cross $85 per ounce on his screens. And God help us all if we're too late. What Ray didn't know was that across the Pacific, in a nondescript office building in Shanghai, Chinese officials were watching the exact same silver charts, but they weren't worried about the rising prices. They were celebrating. Phase 4 was ahead of schedule. The final phase that would determine whether the American dollar would survive the next 12 months had just begun. And the only man who might be able to stop it was now trapped between 2 impossible choices: become a traitor to his country or watch the financial system he had spent his life understanding crumble into dust. The silver dragon had awakened, and its fire was about to consume everything Ray Dalio held dear. As the first light of dawn broke over Connecticut, silver touched $90 per ounce, and Ray Dalio prepared for the most dangerous gamble of his life.